Welcome to SHERI 2016, Session 1.4, Developing Robust Research Questions. I am Dr. Elizabeth Odoni-Paolucci, an assistant professor within the Medical Education Specialization of the Department of Community Health Sciences and Department of Surgery in the Cummings School of Medicine at the University of Calgary. In this session, I will advocate for the importance of developing good research questions, which is viewed as both a science and an art. Conceptualizing research ideas requires having the right tools and knowledge, as well as sufficient practice. By the end of this session, learners may be able to distinguish between a research topic or focus, a problem, question, and hypothesis. Describe the process of formulating research questions, and identify the features of robust research questions. There are grand ideas, good ideas, and doable ideas, and in order to be successful at executing a research project, it's essential to recognize these differences. In order to move from the project planning phase to data collection and analysis, and finally to the implementation phase, it's critical that an appropriate research question first be identified. According to Ringstead, Hodges, and Shapir, in a medical teacher paper published in 2011, newcomers to medical education research usually have their scientific interests sparked off by a concrete problem or phenomenon in their local setting. They state that the true medical education challenge is one of turning this problem or observation into a general, researchable problem within a context of learning, teaching, and education. Rather than focusing on local, concrete problems or questions you want to resolve for, say, your course or your medical school, the challenge is really to focus on how your study could contribute new knowledge generalizable to other contexts. One way that can help you make your question more generalizable is to situate the problem within a conceptual framework. By analyzing or deconstructing your problem or observation of interest into basic concepts and inquiring into the underlying mechanisms of learning, teaching, and education, you are relying on existing theories to help clarify, systematically structure, and organize your research project. A conceptual theoretical framework is core to any study and is the basis of any research approach taken. According to Ringstead et al. In 2011, 4 broad categories of studies that relate to different purposes comprise what they call a research compass model. These types of studies include explorative studies, experimental studies, observational studies, and translational studies. I encourage you to look at this model in greater detail, and while it's not intended to be exhaustive, it does offer a big picture view of how a wide array of research approaches contribute to building knowledge and understanding learning and education. The first step is to identify the overarching themes of the idea or problem. The next step is to study the basic concepts related to those themes, so you're moving from more general questions to more specific ones. Gaps in theory can be used to refine the focus of your research as well as justify your research question and objectives, emphasizing why your research findings are likely to be valuable. It's important to state the purpose of the research and provide a clear rationale as to why this purpose is important, in relation to both existing knowledge and with regards to the implications for practice. Doing this will also help support the rationale for your study and justify why and how it will be undertaken. To do this, you need to be clear regarding the practical relevance of the study. So how will your study add new knowledge or contribute new insights from maybe an alternative perspective, or maybe even replicate earlier findings? Providing a convincing rationale that is justified by the academic literature is essential for high-quality research. In essence, your study should not be seen as solving local problems, but rather as contributing bits and parts of new knowledge, understanding, and reflection on a variety of phenomena. Therefore, selecting theories of learning and education, performing a critical synthesis of information from the empirical literature by identifying what is both known and unknown, and then applying your individual thoughts and ideas, further assists in formulating a researchable question and subsequently choosing an appropriate and rigorous research approach. Where do you look for a research question? Curiosity should be the driving force behind the conduct of research, provided it's appropriately disciplined, systematic, and directed. So where do you plant your curiosity? Well, your own world can be one place. Your clinical world, educational experience, or your research world. This demands you be an active observer and learner rather than a passive recipient of information. So take note of what's going on around you and be critical and reflective in making your meaning. Another place to look is the scientific community. Often the existing works of published research is another good starting place. So review medical education resources like textbooks, journals, and websites. Attend local, national, or international medical education conferences and listen to presentations by leading experts in the field. Consult with BME reviews and AMI guides, which have very good, useful references listed in them, as well as they do a great job at identifying gaps in knowledge in areas where further research is needed. Researchers tend to draw upon different types of knowledge, so you should also consider theoretical knowledge and ethical knowledge sources. Theoretical knowledge, or the lens that you adopt to viewing the world, really relates to the body of information you develop by observing the world from a framework or a particular model. Ethical knowledge derives from multiple sources, such as your values, your personal feelings, professional standards, and your beliefs. So while your theoretical knowledge informs your perception of what is around you, your ethical knowledge can guide your sense of what should be. So it's important to identify the links between these types of knowledge, between theory and practice, and then to ask yourself, what are the consequences of taking on a particular approach? And then, of course, actively practicing, identifying and formulating research questions of interest around you. Consider alternative positions and approaches and become reflexive about that position. In the end, the hope is that you will employ many types of knowledge to help illuminate the context and rationale behind the questions you pose, how you design your study, gather data, and subsequently analyze your data. It is helpful to make the distinction between a research topic or focus and a problem, question, and hypothesis. Research topics may come from your personal experience, from reviewing a colleague's work, or may be suggested from a call for research proposals or funding sources. Research topics specify the general domain, area, or scope of inquiry. The research problem explains the contribution of your research. It's a statement about an area of concern that exists in scholarly literature, in theory, or in practice that points to the need for meaningful understanding and deliberate investigation. The research question specifies what is special about the topic. It is a statement that identifies the phenomenon to be studied. There are many types of research questions, including those that are related to defining outcomes, exploring the relationship between potential variables, or just describing a situation or environment. Well thought out and focused research questions lead directly into your hypotheses. The research hypothesis is a more specific prediction about the nature and direction of the relationship between variables in your study. Hypotheses tend to give insight into the research question. They are testable and measurable, and are typically grounded in previous research and theoretical frameworks. Most researchers agree that the formulation of research questions is one of the most important elements of the research process, but it is also one of the most difficult. The process of formulating a research question allows you the opportunity to clarify your ideas, reflect on the definition and operationalization of important concepts, and make links between the questions you want to address and the most appropriate research design. To engage in the process well, however, it's important to critically reflect and ask yourself some of the following questions. Do I know the field and existing literature? What important questions have already been asked? What needs further exploration? Would my study build knowledge or fill a gap? Will my study have a significant impact on the field? Is the timing right to study this question? Am I genuinely curious about this problem? What are my assumptions? Could my assumptions help or hinder me from considering the right questions? Am I wed to a particular explanation or theory, and because of that, reluctant to pursue questions that may challenge these cherished ideas? Am I methods-led or question-led? In other words, am I restricting the range of questions I ask due to my reluctance to learn new research designs or methods of data collection and analysis, or due to my comfort in repeatedly using the same design or method? This leads to the question then, how to create a good research question? And the simple answer is that good research questions are formed and worked on. They are not found. It takes hard work, but you should start with what interests you and be prepared to refine and continue to refine the question until it works. Interestingly, although having a clear and well-defined research question at the outset of your study will definitely help you plan a coherent research design, usually developing a robust research question involves numerous iterations. What is the role or benefit of a good research question? As already stated, good research questions guide the project from start to finish. It provides a rationale for the importance of the project, and it justifies and explains the significance and addresses the so what. Good research questions assist in constructing a logical argument with a conceptual theoretical framework at the core. A good research question leads directly into your hypotheses and identifies what you expect or predict to find and what your variables of interest are. Specifically, the question indicates the data needed to answer it. A good research question helps you plan a coherent research design. It helps you make decisions about the kinds of evidence required, the logic of the research, and the question creates a link between the data and the conclusions. Developing a research design from the research questions you pose allows you to identify any weaknesses with the research at an early stage and make modifications to eliminate or minimize their impact. Good research questions provide transparency of the research process, and when reporting on the results, they direct the focus of one's conclusions and address generalizability of the findings. There are some common features of good research questions, and these include: good research questions are relevant, substantial, and impactful. Given the cost and investment of hard work and time, good research questions should be timely, important, add value, and contribute to building on the existing research in a field, and to make a difference. They should be interesting to you as well as to those who are working in this area or who are trying to better understand this phenomenon. Good research questions should be linked to relevant theory and connected to the existing research. They are of limited utility if they're relevant to only you, and they cannot be generalized to other conditions or groups. Good research questions must be clearly stated, so you can systematically define the terms as unambiguously as possible. So they need to be focused on outcomes and researchable in the possibility of finding verifiable shared evidence. And finally, one important characteristic that needs to be emphasized is that good research questions need to be feasible. Questions are of no value if you cannot logistically carry out the project. This means you need to ensure you have the expertise on board, along with sufficient resources such as time, money, personnel, infrastructure, so you can see the study through from start to completion. In the remaining slides, I provide you with some examples of real research questions that have been conducted in veterinary medicine and medical education. These examples reflect research questions from descriptive studies, qualitative studies, psychometric studies, quasi-experimental studies, and observational studies, respectively. What I'd like you to do is take some time to evaluate whether you think these are sufficiently robust in possessing all the qualities of good research questions we've discussed. What are the learning needs and delivery preferences of veterinary preceptors representing diverse clinical practice types and locations throughout Alberta? What are the teaching motivations, enjoyment, and challenges encountered by veterinarians in their work as preceptors? What are the views of medical educators concerning the PBL approach? How can rash analysis be used to determine the validity of the extended matching questions examination taken by fourth-year medical undergraduates? What is the content and construct validity of the Knowledge of Research Evidence Competencies instrument in assessing evidence-based practice, cognitive skills for entry-level health professional disciplines? Is there an effect of a reader's test of the continuing medical education journal La Revue Prescrire on the recall of medical knowledge by physicians who participated in the journal's reader's test compared to physicians who subscribed to the journal but not to its reader's test? How is the clinical teaching carried out in a clinical environment with medical students? In summary, it is important to distinguish between a research topic, problem, question, and hypothesis. Developing a good research question is one of the critical first steps in the research process, which involves starting off broad, becoming more focused, and then evaluating the question. Robust research questions have specific qualities, including that of being of interest to the researcher, relevant to others, specific, measurable, and feasible. There are many research approaches to choose from, each having their own purpose. Ringstead et al. In 2011 presented 4 main categories: exploratory, experimental, observational, and translational. Remember that the choice of research approach adopted depends on the research question you pose.